Teacher laughs off challenge. Discover the incredible genius hidden within this 17-year-old. In a small Midwestern town, where dreams often drift away like autumn leaves, Marcus Johnson sat quietly in the back of his math classroom. He was used to being overlooked, his brilliance hidden beneath the surface of modesty, like a diamond buried in the dirt. He felt the weight of the room bodies shifting in their seats, whispered giggles that stung more than any rejection ever could. The bell rang, signaling the start of Ms. Thompson's class. Today was supposed to be different. "All right, class, let us tackle this problem," Ms. Thompson said with confidence, bright eyes scanning the room. But when the math problem on the board flickered into view, doubt crawled its way into Marcus's mind. It was a beast of a problem, notorious for breaking spirits. He felt the usual flutter of fear, but shoved it down. He couldn't let his mother's sacrifices not working endless shifts at the diner, just to scrape by go in vain. When Marcus raised his hand, he forced a calm voice to come out. "I think I can solve that." The laughter that erupted ripped through the air like a gunshot. "Wishful thinking," Miss Thompson said, shrugging it off, dismissing him with a cascade of laughter from the rest of the class. Marcus's face burned. The moment felt like falling off a cliff without a parachute. Yet, in that crushing moment of humiliation, something ignited deep within him, a fierce determination cut through the fog of self-doubt. Sitting in the kitchen later that night, the familiar aroma of bacon filled the air as his mother, Sharon, flipped through bills. "You okay, honey?" she asked, noticing his silence. That look in her eyes made him feel even smaller. "You got this, Marcus. Just keep pushing through." Her words wrapped around him like a warm blanket, reinforcing his resolve. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen." Now let's continue. That evening, Marcus found solace in the backyard, the stars watching like guardians. Just then, a figure emerged from the shadows. Mr. Sanchez, the town's retired war veteran. "You look defeated, son. What's bothering you?" he asked, his voice gravelly, yet warm. Marcus poured out his frustration, the challenges of social prejudices, the laughter echoing in his mind. Mr. Sanchez listened intently, nodding, recognizing the spark of brilliance, of potential. Their late-night study sessions turned into a sanctuary for Marcus. Under Mr. Sanchez's mentorship, Marcus immersed himself in complex equations, every solved problem tearing down the walls that had held him back. Light began to trickle in, drowning out the shadows. Their laughter, their camaraderie, began to awaken a community, stirring sentiments that had lain dormant as the town buzzed with rumors and whispers. The school board announced a math competition. The stakes felt unreal for Marcus. It wasn't just a contest. It was about breaking stereotypes, reshaping how people saw him, how they viewed kids from families like his. But worries loomed large, doubts clawing at him like hungry wolves. Could he rise above the jeers, the whispers, the expectations, or would the laughter from the classroom continue to haunt him? Now, standing at a crossroads, Marcus felt the weight of a community on his shoulders, a burning passion flickering against the darkness. Would he have the strength to grasp the future, one filled with opportunity and hope? Or would the challenges drown out his dreams? The night held its breath, and so did he, caught between fear and ambition, ready to take the leap. The morning sun spilled into Marcus's room, illuminating countless math problems scribbled on paper, crumpled, and scattered around. It was a chaotic nest of determination, echoing the turbulence within him. Today was the day of the math competition. He woke up early, the excitement mixed with nerves stirring in his stomach like butterflies on caffeine. His mother had already left for the diner, but her words lingered, wrapping around him like a shield. "You got this, Marcus." He repeated it to himself as he donned the same blue polo that felt lucky to AT school. The atmosphere buzzed with mixed anticipation and anxiety. Students clustered, discussing strategies, while he stood apart, focused, cracking complex equations in his mind. Mr. Sanchez arrived, a shadow of pride and sternness at his back. "Remember, It's more than just numbers. It's about showing them who you are, he advised. Eyes glinting. As they walked to the auditorium, Marcus felt the weight of expectations. Every step felt heavy, drumming in time with the pulse of the crowd. And then they entered the auditorium, a sea of students, teachers, and a judging panel that felt like a wall of authority. The competition began with teams stepping up to answer questions on a projector. Each wrong answer buzzed like a blunt force, nudging Marcus's confidence into questionable waters. From a distance, he heard whispers, snickers echoing like a haunting melody. Marcus's team was called up to face their first challenge. He stepped forward, glancing at the problem on the board. Sweat prickled at his brow. It didn't just test math skills. It prodded at his deepest insecurities, those laughter-laden moments in class. He quickly scribbled down a few calculations, feeling the heat rise in the room. The jeers returned, a chilling undertow, but he breathed. Numbers danced in his mind, familiar friends in a sea of chaos. He couldn't let this be his undoing. His voice came out steadier than he felt. I think the answer is. He paused for dramatic effect, meeting the smirks of some classmates. 722. Silence swallowed the room, eyes widening. The judge scribbled something down, nodded, and declared it correct. A spark lit true inside him, chasing shadows away. For the first time, laughter didn't feel like a knife. It transformed into cheers that felt like fuel. His team rallied, confidence washing over them like a wave. They pushed through, problem after problem, each answer stacking bricks of resilience. As the competition wore on, he felt support around him, faces lighting up, the atmosphere jolting with hope. It felt as if the entire room was rooting for him, cheering for the underdog. He was no longer just Marcus from the back of the classroom. He was a part of a team, striving together, but the competition was fierce. With each correct answer came a greater challenge, tougher questions that could twist even the best of minds. As they reached the final question, sweat dripped down his neck. He read it, uncertainty threatening to take hold. Suddenly, he saw it clearly. The way the numbers flowed, a river of logic and creativity. It was a realization that not only buoyed his spirit but echoed deep within, unlocking something that had been resting quietly inside him. He stole a glance at Mr. Sanchez in the crowd. The old man smiled, pride radiating like sunshine. Marcus took a breath and spoke the answer with newfound confidence. The tension in the room stood still, the weight of all eyes on him, waiting, and then he heard the familiar voice of Ms. Thompson, cutting through the silence. Well now, Marcus, let us see if you can really hold the weight of expectations. As the audience erupted in whispers and murmured questions, a chill cascaded down his spine. The spotlight had shifted again, opening a door he wasn't sure he was ready to face. He had triumphed over many shadows, but perhaps this moment would push him into the light completely. He stared at the board, determination boiling beneath the surface. Could he really win this? And what would it take for the world, still skeptical, to finally see him as he truly was? The air became electric, buzzing with a kind of tension that felt almost tangible. Marcus's heart raced as he stared at the question lingering on the screen before him. It was more than just numbers and letters. It was a doorway to everything he had hoped to prove. As the murmurs grew louder, he drowned them out, focusing on the challenge. This was not just about math anymore. It was about belief, about showing everyone who he truly was. Come on, Marcus, he whispered to himself, gripping the edge of the podium. The clock ticked down, each second echoing in the hollows of his chest. Sweat trickled down his back, but he straightened, reminding himself of the support from his teammates. He launched into the problem, letting the numbers swirl around him, forming pathways that only he could see. There was a rhythm, a beat to the equations, and he felt himself falling into it. The more he calculated, the more he felt like he was shaping something beautiful, like an artist crafting a masterpiece. But then, Ms. Thompson's voice rose again. What if it's too much for you, Marcus? What if the pressure just crushes you? Those words cut deep, but they also ignited a fire in him. He wouldn't let them get inside his head. This was his moment to shine. He looked out into the audience, seeking the familiar faces, his teammates nodding, Mr. Sanchez giving him a thumbs up, even his mother's comforting smile flickering at the back of the room. They were his strength, and he could feel it flowing through him in a rush. He spoke the answer, letting the solution spill out with newfound certainty. 1892. The room seemed to hold its breath. For a split second, everything froze, time itself wavering like a mirage. Then he heard the judge's voice finally declare, "Correct." Joy ignited in his chest, an explosion of jubilant energy. His teammates erupted in cheers, clapping and slapping him on the back. In that moment, the heaviness lifted. For the first time, laughter rang loud and genuine, free of malice. It felt liberating, but Miss Thompson was not finished. She leaned closer, her expression inscrutable. "But what about the next round? Can you keep this up, Marcus?" "There's still more to come." Her words hung in the air, a lingering shadow over his victory. The reality of the challenge ahead began to creep back in, along with that nagging self-doubt. Was this just a fluke? Would he trip and fall in the next round, proving everyone's fears right? He looked back at the board, heart pounding with anticipation and uncertainty. The competition wasn't over yet, and the next question could easily undo everything he had worked so hard to achieve. Yet deep inside, a flicker of fire raged on, nudging him forward. This wasn't just about proving himself to others. It was about proving it to himself. Biting his lip, he prepared for what lay ahead. If he could face down that fear, maybe he could carve out his own place in this world, the place where his true potential sparkled beneath the surface like a treasure waiting to be found. "All right, bring it on," he whispered, a steely defiance creeping into his tone. And just then, the host announced the next problem, a complex beast of an equation, the kind that could easily turn excitement into despair. As eyes locked onto him, he felt the weight pressed down again. Could he really reach for the stars with everything on the line? The question lingered in the back of his mind, unsettling yet exhilarating, as Marcus readied himself for the challenge that loomed directly ahead. The moment the host spoke, the question hung in the air like fog, complex variables intertwined with parabolas, teasing his mind. Marcus felt sweat bead at his temples, but he couldn't look away. Every second stretched, time warping around him. He took a deep breath, grounding himself in the reality of the challenge. "Just numbers," he reminded himself. "I can handle this." Those two words spun in his mind as he dissected the equation, breaking it apart like a puzzle waiting for its pieces to snap into place. The crowd was palpable, like a living organism, breathing in sync with his heartbeat. When he glanced up, he spotted his mother again, her smile unwavering even as uncertainty flickered in her eyes. Mr. Sanchez, always his pillar of strength, nodded encouragingly. And then there were his teammates' faces etched with a mix of hope and fear, their trust resting heavily on him. With fury ignited by their confidence, he started writing. The numbers made sense. They danced around him, no longer daunting but part of a greater symphony. 624. He muttered, calculating furiously. He pressed on, each step measured, like a tightrope walker balancing on a thin line. Seconds ticked by, but this time, they were fuel for his fire. He spun the equation in his mind, feeling the rhythm of his thoughts quicken, gaining clarity as he moved deeper into the problem. But then he heard a low mumble from Miss Thompson, undermining his focus. "You may not be as sharp as you think, Marcus. This answer could ruin you." It was a shadow whispering doubt, clawing at the edges of his determination. Ignoring her, he sank deeper into the flow. With every stroke of the pen, he was unraveling not just the equation but himself. He was more than a student. He was a creator, a thinker, and this was his canvas. Suddenly, it all fell into place. The solution clicked. 2053, he declared, his voice unwavering, cutting through the tension like a knife. Silence. It was deafening. Then came the judge's voice, slicing through the air with a finality that made Marcus's heart leap. Correct. The eruption that followed was like a dam breaking. Cheers and shouts rang out as his teammates surrounded him, lifting him in celebration. Laughter filled the room, a joyous cacophony that drowned out any fears. For a brief moment, he let himself bask in the warmth of triumph. But Ms. Thompson appeared again, unrelenting. "You've done well, Marcus. But remember, the third round is the hardest." Her tone dripped with condescension. But there was something else, too. Was it concern? He could feel the collective weight of expectation resting on him. What if the next question revealed him as a fraud? "But I've come this far," he whispered to himself, determination building within him again. This was his shot. This was the moment that could change everything. "Bring it on," he said aloud, almost defiantly. Confidence bubbled up within him, igniting a blaze of resolve. As the host announced the next challenge, Marcus squared his shoulders. He wasn't just a participant anymore. He was a contender. And the fire within him wasn't just about winning. It was about breaking boundaries, stepping outside of the shadows of doubt. The next question appeared, bold on the screen, and it was the most complicated yet. It loomed over him like a storm cloud, but Marcus laughed inwardly. "You can't scare me. I'm ready." The crowd leaned in, breaths held, and Marcus felt it. Could he muster the strength to transform fear into fuel for the ultimate challenge? As he stared at the challenge ahead, that question pulsed in his mind like a heartbeat. Would this be his defining moment, or would he falter? With hope swelling in his chest, he took a step forward. The storm was coming, but he would face it head-on. The question flashed on the screen, a chaotic mix of letters and numbers that made his heart race. It felt like a riddle wrapped in an enigma, each symbol taunting him. His mind went blank for a split second as he tried to comprehend what was unfolding before him. But Marcus refused to let panic seize him. This was his moment, not just for himself, but for everyone who believed in him. He took a deep breath, letting the familiar rhythm of numbers flow back into his thoughts. "Okay, focus," he murmured, fists clenched at his sides. The world around him melted away. The noise of the crowd faded to a low hum, and all he could hear was the steady thrum of his own heartbeat. The anxiety, the fear, they were there, but they only fueled his determination. With the first few calculations rolling in, a flicker of clarity ignited a sense of purpose within him. Each step was a dance with the equation, every variable leading him closer to the answer. He could feel the eyes of his teammates on him, their belief wrapping around him like a protective cloak. "Marcus, you got this," someone shouted from the back, the sound cutting through the pressure. Each cheer echoed a reminder of why he was here. It wasn't just to win. It was to prove to himself that he was capable of greatness. The numbers spun in his mind like a tornado, swirling and colliding, until suddenly they aligned, forming a pattern that made sense. His pencil flew across the paper. "The derivative equals 36, he said, hoping it resonated with someone. He paused and surveyed the crowd. His mother's eyes sparkled, reflecting hope amid chaos. Then there was Mr. Sanchez, who looked just as tense, his fingers crossed in silent prayer. But more than anything, he saw the glimmer of excitement on his teammates' faces, a beacon shining through the gray fog of doubt. The murmurs from the audience crescendoed as he scribbled furiously. Miss Thompson's voice nagged in his mind. "Can you keep this up?" But he shook it off like water on a duck's back. One step at a time, he repeated to himself. When he finally finished, the answer wasn't just numbers. It was an expression of who he had become. He stood tall and projected his voice, announcing, 314. The silence was piercing again, as though the world waited at the edge of a precipice. "Incorrect," boomed the judge, and devastation washed over him like icy water. His heart sank, and he felt the weight of disappointment like a shroud. But it wasn't just about the answer. It was about the battle he had fought against self-doubt and fear. He looked around at his teammates, who still wore encouraging smiles, and suddenly, a spark ignited within him. "Wait," he said, raising his hand for attention. "Can I try again?" The host looked surprised but nodded. "You have 30 seconds. Marcus took a breath, images of his mom and Mr. Sanchez filling his mind. This wasn't just a game anymore. It was a chance for redemption. He closed his eyes, blocking out everything except the numbers. In that moment, everything clicked back into focus. New calculations raced through his mind, illuminating the path to victory. He wrote fiercely, 288. He declared, louder this time than before. "Correct." The judge's words washed over him, bringing warmth and electricity to his veins. The crowd erupted into cheers, and his teammates rushed to lift him again, their joy infectious. Just as he reveled in their celebration, however, the shadows whispered again. Was this victory enough? What came next? He knew he wasn't done. The look on Ms. Thompson's face was still lingering in his mind, a reminder that the next question could be even more complex. And as the next challenge flickered onto the screen, Marcus felt a thrill of adrenaline rush through him. Game on, he thought, locking eyes with the numbers as if they were old friends. What would the next question unravel about himself? The screen flickered, revealing a new set of calculations that made Marcus's heart quicken again. This one looked tougher, filled with unfamiliar terms and concepts that danced teasingly at the edges of his memory. Just moments ago, he had tasted victory, but now the fear of failure lurked like an unwelcome shadow. He heard his mother's voice in his head, a gentle reminder of why he was here. "You can do this, Marcus," she would often say, urging him to trust himself. But now, her words felt shaky, as if they were being drowned out by the anxiety pulsing through the auditorium. "Focus," he whispered again, closing his eyes briefly to shut out the distractions. But the weight of opinions pressed on him. The murmurs from the audience crept back into his mind. What if they thought he was a fraud? What if he couldn't rise to the occasion again? But he reminded himself that every champion falls before they rise. The echoes of his teammates' cheers filled him with courage. Taking another deep breath, he opened his eyes, determined to face this new challenge. The first problem blurred into a series of numbers and operations. He began working the numbers like an artist with a canvas, shifting and shaping them until something beautiful emerged. Slowly, the noise of the crowd faded again. "All right, what do we have here?" Marcus muttered under his breath, his pencil carving furiously across the page. "Come on, bro, you got this," someone shouted from the back, bringing with it a wave of renewed energy. The cheers began to swell as he wrote, flooding him with adrenaline. His world became a vortex of signs and functions, spinning around him like a cyclone. Each variable turned into a friend, guiding him closer to clarity. He could feel his heart pounding, each beat echoing his growing confidence. As he neared the final calculations, doubt nagged at him. Would this solution be enough? What if it didn't impress Miss Thompson? She had always expected so much from him, fueling his ambition but also his fear of inadequacy. But he fought back against those shadows. Instead of caving into uncertainty, he trusted his instincts. The answer wasn't just a set of numbers. It was a testament to his growth, a declaration of his identity. "There, I've got it," he exclaimed, once again raising his voice, louder this time. 156. "Incorrect," the judge said flatly, and Marcus's heart plummeted. No, not again. He felt like the air had been sucked out of him. A wave of embarrassment washed over him, threatening to drown his spirit. That voice within whispered again, "What is the point?" But he dismissed it, unwilling to be silenced. He took a breath and closed his eyes again. If he had learned anything today, it was that failure wasn't where the story ended. "Can I try again?" he asked, surprising even himself. "You have 15 seconds, replied the host, eyeing him curiously. No pressure, Marcus thought, a wry smile creeping onto his lips. This time, he felt unstoppable. He re-examined the problem, each element becoming clearer with each passing second. The answer flickered in front of him, glimmering like a beacon. 72. He shouted, confidence bursting with each syllable. Correct. The judge's voice resonated through the hall, this time igniting a wave of raucous applause. Joy exploded within him, mingled with disbelief. His teammates converged around him, laughter and cheers wrapping him in warmth. His shoulders relaxed, the tension dissolving in the midst of their celebration. Yet as the applause died down, something new seized him. The final question was yet to come, even more taxing than the last. What if he could defy all odds? What if he dared to exceed even his own expectations? The flicker on the screen didn't just show numbers. It presented a choice to embrace the challenge ahead. With his heart racing against his ribs, Marcus grinned. Let us see what you've got. He steeled himself against the uncertainty, knowing this was just the beginning of something bigger. Would he conquer this last summit, or fall into the depths of doubt? Again, the final question appeared, intense and intimidating. Marcus gazed at the digital display as if it were a portal to another world, where every calculation could lead him to victory or defeat. He swallowed hard, his pulse racing with a mix of anxiety and excitement. The numbers seemed to pulse with life. Could he transform them into a solution that would resonate not just with the judges, but also with the soaring hopes of his teammates watching from the sidelines? Each tick of the timer felt like a drumbeat in his chest, urging him to rally himself. Remember what Mom said? He whispered, forcing a smile. Trust yourself. As the seconds ticked away, he focused, allowing everything else to fall away. The murmurs of appreciation from the crowd faded from his ears. The anticipation in the air became a steady hum that fueled his resolve. He could almost picture his mother in the front row, her proud smile lighting the way like a lighthouse through a storm. He made his first move, jotting down variables and equations, navigating the maze laid before him. The complexity of the question began unraveling under his careful scrutiny. It was just numbers, a language of their own. Each line he wrote seemed to bring memories flooding back, late-night study sessions, laughter with friends, and the faith placed in him by those who loved him. 3 minutes remaining. The host called out, urging Marcus to dig deeper. Feeling the pressure, he nodded to himself. I won't give up. With every keystroke, he began piecing together a tapestry of answers. The world outside faded away. There were no past mistakes, no lingering fears, just him and the challenge. Flashes of doubt wormed their way in, but he pushed them aside. This was at the moment when everything could change. He felt buoyed by the memories of nights spent hunched over textbooks, learning that failure only meant a lesson waiting to be learned, not an end to the journey. Come on, Marcus. You've got this, shouted a voice from the crowd. It was Carla, his closest friend, and her enthusiasm lit a fire inside him. He could feel the weight of their hopes resting on his shoulders, and he embraced it rather than shying away. It made him stronger. As he reached the final stages of his calculations, a quiet thrill rushed through him. Could this be it? Was this answer going to sail him to an unexpected triumph? He scribbled the last numbers, his heart hammering louder than before. I believe in myself, he repeated, his hands steady and sure. With a final flourish, he wrote the concluding answer. 78. He shouted, the words bursting forth as if they were trapped inside him, eager for freedom. Incorrect, the judge said. But before she could finish, Marcus felt the world spin around him again. He had barely registered the moment of disappointment when the judge raised a hand for silence. However, she continued, what if we checked a different method? Marcus's heart skipped. Wait, what? You mean this can be solved differently? Yes, the judge replied with an encouraging nod. Sometimes, the answer lies in the way we approach the problem. His mind raced. What had he missed? What different perspective might yield a breakthrough? A wave of possibilities washed over him, and he couldn't help but feel a fresh surge of hope. Let us see where this leads, he thought, as new thoughts sprang to life. What if this moment was less about the numbers and more about learning? As Marcus prepared to dig into a new method, a thrilling idea sparkled in his mind. Could the journey of this challenge reveal something even greater, not just about math, but about himself? The fire of determination ignited again. What if, in seeking a new path, he uncovered a brilliant discovery that would define him? Would he grasp it? The spotlight was back on him, the crowd holding its breath. Time for another attempt, he said aloud with a smile, anticipation bubbling within him. Could he turn this challenge into a defining moment of his own? In the midst of the tension, Marcus took a deep breath, feeling the warmth of the spotlight on his face illuminating the path ahead. The faces in the audience blurred, but Carla's bright eyes were still clear to him, filled with a mixture of anxiety and support. He could sense the collective anticipation, a wave that surged through the crowd, urging him on. With renewed determination, he turned his focus back to the problem at hand. All right, he whispered to himself as if sharing a secret. Let's explore this from a different angle. He thought back to the countless times his teachers had encouraged him to think outside the box, to take risks with his solutions. This was just another puzzle waiting to be solved in a way nobody expected. He grabbed his pen and began scribbling down a new approach. He transformed the equations into visual diagrams and attempted to make connections that weren't immediately obvious. The method he had learned in class suddenly felt like a bridge to new possibilities. Numbers whirled in his mind, dancing to a rhythm only he could hear. 2 minutes, the host announced. He could feel sweat prickling at the nape of his neck. Time was slipping away like grains of sand. But the pressure ignited his creativity. He closed his eyes for a brief moment, picturing his mother again, the way she played the piano, pouring emotions into every note. Music was about flow, about feeling the moment, he realized. Math was much the same. Opening his eyes, Marcus scanned the board. I need to find harmony, he murmured. He drew a line between variables, connecting them as if composing a melody. Imagery formed in his mind, each number had a story, a purpose. He recalibrated his thoughts, aligning them with what he wanted to say, making a narrative out of formulas. Each stroke of his pen felt lighter, freer. He moved with confidence, navigating the labyrinth of the problem. It wasn't just a test anymore, it was a chance to unlock something within himself. Come on, Marcus. You can do this. Carla's voice broke through his concentration again, her enthusiasm spiraling into his heart like energy. Her faith in him formed a shield against the looming doubt that tried to creep back in. And then, clarity struck like a bolt of lightning. He realized he hadn't just been missing a solution. He had been missing the opportunity to express his understanding fully. 1 minute, the host called. He surged forward, translating bursts of inspiration into equations, portraying them as answers. This moment could be his, he thought. This time, he wasn't just fighting for himself, but for everyone who had believed in him. He wrote with fervor. A profound joy spread through him. He was not just solving a question. He was defiantly reimagining how to approach challenges not just in math, but in life. With a final glance at his work, he shouted, 81. The crowd erupted into whispered chatter, their eyes darting back to the judges in eager anticipation. Did he really just say that? The judge, her brows raised in surprise, exchanged glances with the other judges before leaning in toward the microphone. 81. Let's evaluate this. Marcus felt a rush of adrenaline. This moment wasn't just about validation. It was about proving to himself that he could chase breakthroughs against all odds. Maybe, just maybe, he'd tapped into something incredible. As the judges deliberated, silence enveloped the auditorium, thick with uncertainty. Marcus's heart raced. Would they see the beauty and creativity in his new method? Did I really break the mold? He thought, a mix of hope and nerves swirling inside him. With every second that passed, it became palpable that something remarkable was unfolding on stage, something that could redefine not just his journey, but those of countless others. Would this be the moment that would change everything for him? The judge cleared her throat. We might just have something here. What revelation awaited them? Would it resonate with the crowd, changing the trajectory of Marcus' life forever? The judge's words hung in the air like a thick fog, pregnant with possibilities. Marcus felt his stomach churn as the tension in the room intensified. The audience shuffled in their seats, an ocean of anticipation swelling and crashing around him. The murmurs of excitement rippled through the crowd, and he could vividly recall the times he had spent grappling with numbers alone, longing for moments exactly like this. With every heartbeat, he braced himself for their verdict. The judges leaned in closer to one another, whispering and scribbling notes furiously. Anxiety crept along his veins, tightening like a vice. What if they dismissed his answer? What if it wasn't enough? Finally, the woman who had spoken before faced the audience again, a hint of a smile breaking through her stern demeanor. After careful consideration, we believe Marcus has offered a new approach to the problem. The room erupted into gasps and whispers that cascaded over one another, igniting a spark of hope within him. But, she continued, raising a finger for emphasis, there's more to evaluate. Her gaze flickered back to Marcus, and despite the confidence she had just shown, something in her eyes hinted at doubt. How did you arrive at 81? Can you explain your thought process? Marcus swallowed hard, feeling the weight of those eyes fixated upon him once again. I tried to rethink how the variables interacted, he managed, voice tremulous but steadying with urgency. I connected them as if each was telling a story. I didn't just see them as numbers, but as parts of a whole, a melody waiting to be played. His words seemed to resonate in the silence. He could see some judges nodding thoughtfully, while others exchanged doubtful looks. Let us break it down, another judge chimed in, leaning forward. What does this new connection mean for the broader context of the problem? Can you do this under pressure or time constraints? His heart pounded like a drum. Could he? I believe that's the purpose of a test, he said, finding strength as he spoke. To challenge us to think creatively. Under pressure, we find solutions we didn't know existed. The crowd looked on in amazement, as whispers turned to sheer intrigue. Carla's presence anchored him, and suddenly, he could see the potential radiating from every corner of the room. His words weren't just reaching the judges. They were bridging something larger, an understanding of math as art, science as philosophy. The space felt electric, every pulse in his body aligning with the rhythmic intensity of their gazes. He realized at this moment that he was no longer just a 17-year-old student, he was a storyteller, weaving a narrative they could grasp, one filled with meaning. With newfound boldness, he pressed on. If we change our perspectives, not only do we find different answers, but we also inspire others to break their own barriers. Marcus could barely contain himself. This was the secret he'd held inside, the truth about creativity that transcended numbers. A chorus of wow erupted from the audience, the sound washing over him like a wave of affirmation. The judge paused, and the atmosphere shifted. "Perhaps this is just the beginning for you, Marcus," she said, her voice softer now. "But what next?" A question hung in the air, electric and profound. What if this was just the tip of the iceberg? What awaited him beyond this stage, a world that had always felt just out of reach? He knew he had sparked something special, but what would he do with it? Would he let fear dictate his next move, or would he continue to leap into the unknown? As the crowd continued to marvel at his words, Marcus took a breath, feeling curiosity stirring deep within him. What lay ahead could be a thrilling adventure beyond anything he'd ever imagined. Would he have the courage to embrace it? Marcus stood on that stage, heart pounding, a whirlwind of emotions swirling within him. He had stepped into the spotlight filled with doubt and fear, but he would leave it transformed. The crowd's reactions buzzed in his ears, the anticipation palpable, feeding into his adrenaline. He had turned the very expectations that had once crushed him into a platform from which he could leap into greatness. With every heartbeat, the realization struck him. He was no longer the quiet boy in the back of the classroom, no longer invisible. He had a voice, an approach to life that was uniquely his, and it was time for the world to see that. "Thank you for this incredible opportunity," he began, his voice steadying, "but I'm just getting started." The electric air in the auditorium filled with murmurs of awe, familiar faces brightening with support. He locked eyes momentarily with his mother. Her smile radiated pride and encouragement, a beacon in the storm. "I'm not just here to prove I can solve problems. I'm here to show that everyone can. We all have stories, and they deserve to be shared." His words flowed freely now, and with every sentence, he could feel himself lifting higher. Every answer we find isn't just a number, it's a piece of who we are. Every failure is just a stepping stone towards something greater. This is the lesson I've learned, and it's about time we embrace it. Each word resonated with a flicker of something new found within him, igniting the minds and hearts around him. The judges leaned closer, their attention captured not just by his abilities, but the passion that fueled his spirit. They didn't just want to see an answer anymore. They wanted to witness a revelation, and unknowingly, Marcus was ready to deliver one. There's power in creativity, in challenging the norms, he continued, excitement bubbling within him. Today, schools should be places where students can express every facet of their abilities, transforming not just their future, but the future of education itself. Math isn't just about solving equations. It's a language that connects us all, and I refuse to let it be defined by limits. The crowd erupted into applause, friends and classmates breaking out into cheers. The sound flowed over him like a warm tide, bringing back inklings of the laughter that once hurt, now replaced by joy and connection. He was the underdog that had found a voice, a community eager to rally behind him, and he embraced it. "I want to inspire others to take that leap," he said, "to find their voices and trust what they can bring to the world. If I can turn my struggles into celebration, then this is just the beginning." The room pulsed with shared hope, hands raised in encouragement. With the day's struggles behind him and the light of futures yet unknown ahead, Marcus felt the dawning realization of potential. "Now I know this journey isn't just mine. It belongs to everyone with a dream." And in that moment, they cheered him on. He had stepped beyond fear and into the expansive world of possibility. Their faces sparkled with inspiration, a reminder that together, they could break down boundaries and rebuild their futures. As the competition concluded, the judges stood to announce the winning teams. "Your determination and creativity have illuminated a new path for us," the head judge said, a sincere smile touching her face. "The ultimate victory is here, not just in the answers found today, but in the connections made." And just like that, Marcus Johnson was crowned champion not just for his impressive math skills, but for his courage to share his truth. The exultation enveloped him like a warm embrace. As his teammates hoisted him into the air, laughter and joy ricocheting in the hall, he understood what this victory meant. He wasn't just a student anymore. He was a beacon of hope for others. He was ready to change the narrative not just for himself, but for everyone who felt overlooked. The world was waiting, and he would step forward, carrying them all with him. As the applause crescendoed, he glanced around and saw each familiar face. Friends, family, mentors. They were standing together, transformed, ready to embark on this journey of growth and discovery. This was not the end, it was the beginning of a new story, one filled with inspiration, creativity, and unyielding hope. And it was time for the world to see it. Now, if you felt inspired by this incredible journey, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Hit that like button now to feed the algorithm, and comment below with your reactions and feelings about this ending. Don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. This is the moment to show your support and be part of an amazing community.